Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for all the effort you have been putting to the implementation of the Backwash Effect. I think this is an ongoing process, and we're all learning. So, what is the main purpose? Just as a quick reminder, what we're doing this semester is applying something that is called action research. And action research has 4 stages that you can read anytime in the chapter that we sent before in our previous training session. So the key here is that what we're doing here is that we are trying to enhance the development of some skills in our students. We in our exams, the way we have designed our exams, the questions aim to focus to certain things students need to develop, whether they're listening, whether they're writing, whether they're reading, whether they're speaking, and so on. So what we're doing is that we're trying to adapt our readings, writings, and all those exercises that we do in class to the type of skills we want our students to develop. Therefore, the idea here is that we redesign our questions following the guidelines that we already have. So these are the guidelines which I am attaching to this email again. This guideline is telling us, okay, these are the type of questions that students will answer in our exams. Supervisors and exam writers are following these ones. Therefore, our task is to, every time, for example, we do a listening activity, we design questions like, what would be an appropriate title for this? What is the main idea of the speaker? What is the topic of the passage? So choose the correct statement according to it as stated. So the idea is that when we do any of these reading, listening, or writing exercises in our classes, we follow these guidelines. I mean, this type of questions. Example, I have here one that I did with my students, and this is about a listening that I have in my project, in my task. Last semester I didn't do it, I just played the listening and asked a few questions. But this time I adapted the questions, so I wrote questions according to the guidelines. For example, appropriate title. What would be an appropriate title for? So what would be an appropriate title for this video? So what I did with my students is I presented the type of questions. I explained to my students the type of questions they will face in the midterms and the type of questions that we're going to be working in class. And mainly the purpose of these questions. So I said that this one here is focusing on understanding general idea. So that's what they have to focus on. Main idea. Then find factual information. So I told them, this is about specific information in a text, in the audio. So I explained this to them and I practiced this with them in class. So for example, it is not stated, it is not mentioned. So I asked, okay guys, which tip to improve your profile is not mentioned in the video? So I told them that in this case, they have to focus on what is not of the possibilities, which one discriminate, which one is not mentioned in the audio. And as you know, this is one of those questions that is very difficult for them. So I've done 1, 2, there's another one that I did here. This is one that I use a tech talk. The other one I use an interview, authentic. Both are authentic audios. And there's a third one that I did that is based on. No, actually, Hector did it. Hector sent it to me. That is based on one of the audios of the book. So the idea is, okay, of course, what I did is sometimes I just focus on the first 3 or 4 questions in a class, and then the other one I continue with the others. So you can if you have time, one day you can do 50 minutes, you can spend 5 minutes, etc., etc. But the purpose is like you get your students work with these kind of questions in class. So every time you have a reading, writing, you do it. So this has to be done systematically. And the purpose of the reflective log is that we have a research question. Our research question is, how do I make my teaching more efficient in order to improve my students' exams performance? Is in other words, what things do I have to do in class to get my students ready ready for these exams? And as I said, the exams are aligned with the learning objectives and the general competence. So when you're getting your students ready for the exams, at the same time, you're getting students ready to develop the skills they need according to the objectives. So remember, you have a planning action. I mean, during the planning, of course, and we plan every time you sit down and say, okay, I have this audio, I'm going to look for this one, and I'm going to design these questions. You write there what kind of listeners did you use or readings did you use, where did you get them, what difficulties you have during the implementation of the planning. For example, I have a problem at the beginning, so okay, I need to design the questions. How can I do it similar to the ones in the exams? So when Hector sent the guidelines, that was great, because with the guidelines, I'm doing the whole thing. I just follow the guidelines and write the questions exactly as they with the prompts that we have in the guidelines. And I say, okay, I'm going to look and how I've been looking for web pages and so forth. And I shared some of those ones with you yesterday. And I decided to focus more at this stage on listening. And I'm doing reading the others, but for me, I want to focus on this because at the beginning, when I talked to my students, they said they were having many problems with their listening, and in particular with some type of questions. Then action. So, for example, you have your planning here, but at the same time, you're writing in the action part because you're implementing. Okay, so when I implemented it, for example, the first thing the students really liked the fact that I explained to them what the questions what the questions were about, and the purpose of the questions, and what was the aim of each question. And they really liked that because they say, okay, we discussed about this. And I discovered, for example, in the process, for example, that students have more problems in this case with the pragmatic understanding, which is in the guidelines. So with this one, they have problems with it. Why does the speaker say this? So we discovered that, for example, there's an expression, they take it literally, and they don't really see what is the purpose in the discourse. For example, the purpose of saying this is not the meaning of what he or she's saying. She's using these expressions to give an example. She's using the example to back up an argument. Those kind of things that are difficult for my students. So one of the ones that I did was, if I'm right, is why does the speaker say, in this case, every leader needs followers? So it's not, tell me what's the meaning. Is to express that leaders are charismatic people, to support an argument she's giving about being an introvert, to introduce an example about introverts that are followers and leaders, to criticize introverts who do not want to become leaders. The answer is to support an argument she's giving about being an introvert. So in this case, it's in the discourse. Why does she use this expression? So that's something that we need to to help our students identify, because they take it too literal and they don't see, in the discourse, she's using this to give an example, to give an argument, etc., etc. So that's the idea. And then the idea is based on the information that we are gathering, that you're having here. All these here, you write doubts that you have, things that you found that called your attention. You describe something that is really important. Yes, it's just take notes that will helpful key at this point of the observation. So then the observation is check the grades the students obtain, were they acceptable, what happened, gather your opinions about the students' opinions about what they did. So what I'm going to do after the midterm and after I grade it is I'm going to sit down and tell, okay guys, how have you felt? Give me opinions about the way we have approached to this type of questions in class. And then you check your notes and reflections. With this, it will take you to reflect upon what you're doing. Say, okay, look, so far I'm doing this right, but I'm having these difficulties. My students haven't improved here, so I think I need to do it more systematically. I think I need to do this more in class. I can give them some extra activities in Moodle. First, I already decided to upload some things in Moodle so they can practice audio listening every week. So that's what I'm trying to do more this semester. And then I go back to planning. So now, for the second part of the semester, before the second midterm, I'm sure I make a few changes in the way I'm approaching to it. So that's the idea. So it's not just to use a mock test or prepare your students 2 or 3 classes before. It has to be something done during the semester in the different skills. Of course, you will focus more in some skills more than others, depending on your students' difficulties. But the idea is that the reflections here is you take notes of the things that are happening. But more than taking notes, and more it goes beyond. It's like you really get to this process of being reflective practitioners. It's that you say, okay, I'm doing this happened, but it is really analyzing what's going on, is getting the information and say, okay, this is what I can do with this. Yes. So thank you very much. I'm contacting teachers through WhatsApp, so we can sit down here and we can talk about how you felt, what things have you found difficult, and what changes we can, and how can we help you. So, and how can we help each other in order to continue doing this during the semester. Thank you very much. Have a great morning, and I'm sorry for the 10 minutes.